Welcome everyone to Gamer Meld. Today I've got a bunch of stories for you, starting with RTX 3050 reviews. It's terrible at mining. This is your chance to buy a GPU at MSRP. RTX 4000 release date leaked, and Nvidia has given up their plans for world domination. Okay, it's news time, and first up for today, Nvidia's RTX 3050 reviews have dropped. And before I get to that, just a really quick recap, this GPU is actually an 8GB card, unlike the RX 6500 XT that only has 4, although it is a bit more expensive at $250 and is available tomorrow. And really quickly on that, I will say I'm going to have affiliate links down in the description below, and that's really important for a story coming up. Anyway, I'm going to go over some of the performance metrics. These are from Tom's Hardware. I typically like to do these just because they always do a game average, so it kind of gives you a better idea of the overall performance. Either way, as you can see, the 3050 does fairly well, beating out the 1660 Super, 5500 XT, and crushing the 6500 XT. You can also see beats out the 1650 Super, of course, if it beats the 1660 Super, but this is 1080p medium settings. Moving on, we have ultra settings, and it does about the same. It does fairly well, nearly 60 FPS overall, so not really all that bad, fairly close to an RTX 2060. Moving on, we can see that it does fairly well with RTX ray tracing turned on. It actually beats out the RX 6600 in 7 games and completely crushes the 6500 XT, although the main reason it did this poorly is because in a couple games, you can see right here, it wouldn't even let them run at their RT settings in either Control or Fortnite. You can see when we go over, it literally gets 0. So that would obviously bring down the score quite a bit, but to be honest, it doesn't really do that well in other games either. Basically, this GPU does fairly well. Of course, if times were different in pretty much any way, no one would be happy about this, especially at $250. But if you can actually get it at that price, it's not a bad deal. And next up for today, you may actually have a chance at getting it at that price, and I actually have more good news in just a second, but it looks like the 3050 does pretty terrible at mining. As you can see down here, a source from China actually said this was originally highlighted by video cards, but they gave the mining performance figures of the RTX 3050. You can see that it gets 20 mega hashes per second, which I guess you could actually say isn't too terrible, but that's before dropping after 4 seconds down to 12.5. For those who don't know, this is likely due to LHR or light hash rate, which is Nvidia's, they try to say it talks with the driver and stuff like that. Basically, it's completely software-based hindrance for mining Ethereum. Now, with that said, miners have mostly found ways around that, although they never really seem to get 100% performance. I think they got really close, but regardless, it does still hamper performance, and unless they have something right out of the gate to minimize LHR, this is definitely not a good buy for miners. And next up for today, if you remember a little while back, I actually covered a story that claimed that RTX 3050 GPUs may actually be obtainable at launch. This was originally done on the Board Channels forum. You can see right here, it says that it is rumored that Nvidia has relatively sufficient supply for the first batch of RTX 3050 series. It says it is understood that Nvidia will strengthen the distribution of the first batch of goods for the upcoming release of the new RTX 3050 series, meaning there's actually a chance that you will be able to buy an RTX 3050. But of course, this is old news. Today I've got something that not only helps to confirm this, but is even better. As you can see right here in a new story from Overclockers 3D, they actually stated, while we have not been able to confirm the exact number of GPUs that will be available at UK retailers at Nvidia's MSRP price, so far we've managed to confirm that almost 1,000 cards will be available for 239.99 euros. Now, don't do any kind of conversion or anything like that to determine, okay, what's that going to be in US dollars? Because that is technically the UK MSRP, and typically the UK's MSRP is a little bit higher when you do the conversion, but that's just the MSRP, and this basically means that they're going to have quite a bit of cards available at the release. It says on day one at MSRP. So not only is Nvidia strengthening supply where they would have relatively sufficient supply, but they're actually delivering quite a bit of cards at MSRP. Now, you may think 1,000 cards isn't that much, but remember that this is in the UK. If they're giving the UK that many cards, they should be giving the US and other larger areas significantly more, meaning you actually may be able to buy a GPU tomorrow at MSRP. And that's one of the reasons why I'm actually doing this talking head video, so I can get this out as quickly as I can so my viewers can be ready to potentially buy it. Now, obviously, there's been disappointment after disappointment on this, but remember that just recently I covered a story in Germany that prices are actually starting to go down. So not only are prices going down, therefore obviously supply is going up, or at least demand is going down, the cards aren't going to be good at mining, and Nvidia is actually going to be supplying quite a bit. This could be a perfect storm for gamers to finally get their chance. And next up for today, known leaker Greymon55, who's definitely gotten quite a bit of leaks right in the past, recently stated, "So far I know the next gen GPU has not been delayed. In fact, it's not far. We're talking half a year." And later on, he further states that Lovelace should have no problem coming out in September, meaning that Nvidia's next-gen GPUs, codename Lovelace or RTX 4000, maybe. Let's not forget that Nvidia technically already has RTX 4000 GPUs. They're just not for gaming. So for now, that's what we're going to call them. Either way, at least according to Greymon55, these should be coming out in September, so not too far away. And if you remember a little while back, Nvidia themselves stated they should actually start doing much better with supply, which likely means that they're ramping up for Lovelace, which means they could have a huge supply come release in September. And lastly for today, Nvidia is apparently giving up their world domination aspirations. For those who don't know, a little while back, Nvidia actually announced that they were purchasing ARM for a whopping $40 billion. And of course, that actually worried quite a bit of people because Nvidia is already pretty massive. If they were to purchase something like ARM, which tons and tons and tons of other companies rely on, this could be a really big issue, especially since a lot of their competition uses ARM. So if they start hindering them left and right, it could really cause a massive problem, especially when it comes to competition. Well, it looks like they may be giving that up. This comes from Bloomberg, and you can see that Nvidia Core is quietly preparing to abandon its purchase of ARM from SoftBank Group Corp after making little to no progress and winning approval for the $40 billion chip deal. If you've been following this channel, you know that there's been quite a few hiccups along the way. I've been covering those ever so often, not every little one, but there's definitely been a lot of problems. It says here, Nvidia has told partners that it doesn't expect the transaction to close, at least according to one person who spoke with Bloomberg. This is actually sharp contrast to a very recent story I covered where Nvidia was actually expanding their R&D department specifically for CPUs. It says, Israel with its unique wealth of talent is a key player in the global tech ecosystem, and we are excited to be creating a new CPU group here. So this was very shortly after. Meaning, if this is true, at least if you ask me, I'm assuming Nvidia knew this when they made this announcement. This could mean that Nvidia is still going ahead with their plans, just not with ARM. And what that would mean is that Nvidia may actually be making their own architecture or something like that. And I will say I'd almost definitively say that's never going to happen for any other company, but Nvidia is definitely one of those companies that has the resources to make that happen. Now, that would obviously be quite a long ways away, but Basically, while this is, honestly, I would say that this is good news just because, once again, Nvidia taking over ARM was pretty scary in many ways. But if they are still going ahead with CPU plans, maybe making their own architecture or something like that, this could also be good news because it would mean we'd have a new player in the CPU market. And it would be a whole lot better if they are that new player, but without controlling ARM. So while that does it for today, as always, I know I ramble quite a bit in these talking head videos, but hopefully you did like it, and let me know what you think about Nvidia's new GPUs coming out, as well as them possibly being done with ARM. Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, have a great day.